A voice like rain on an old tin roof brings stories alive with a soothing truth. In pages he weaves a world so light, the stars lean close to kiss the night. His voice lulls hearts in restless mind, lost in tales where dreams unwind. The book feather reads as shadows rise. His words are calm as lullabies. So turn the page and close your eyes. Float where the quiet whispers lie. Across the oceans the story's tide. Relax and let the world subside. A thousand accents the moonlight bends, in words no borders, no distance ends. Worlds collide in this gentle tone. A whisper makes you feel at home. Each line he shares feels like coming back to a hearth of words in the silent black. From novels deep to poems that sway, he reads the night into the day. So turn the page and close your eyes. Float where the quiet whispers lie. Across the oceans the story's tide. Relax and let the world subside. A thousand accents the moonlight bends, in words no borders, no distance ends. Across the oceans the story's tide. Relax and let the world subside. A voice like rain on an old tin roof brings stories alive with a soothing truth. In pages he weaves a world so light, the stars lean close to kiss the night. His voice lulls hearts in restless mind, lost in tales where dreams unwind. The book feather reads as shadows rise. His words are calm as lullabies. So turn the page and close your eyes. Float where the quiet whispers lie. Across the oceans the story's tide. Relax and let the world subside. A thousand accents the moonlight bends, in words no borders, no distance ends. Worlds collide in this gentle tone. A whisper makes you feel at home. Each line he shares feels like coming back to a hearth of words in the silent black. From novels deep to poems that sway, he reads the night into turn the page and close your eyes. Float where the quiet whispers lie. Across the oceans, the story's tide. Relax and let the world subside.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Giggity. All right.
Seems quiet. Too quiet.
I'm Batman. Gotham is never safe without me. What time is it? It's 7 o'clock. Okay, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. You can attach towers? Shut up. Impromptu performance this evening, which I must say was indeed a welcome distraction. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. You're very kind. This is going to be funny.
Hi.
Good evening.
Purple, how was your stream today? I apologize that I was not able to attend. Today was kind of a weird day. It was bad. I am so sorry. What made it bad? You were struggling, or was it the PC struggling? OBS? Maybe a combination? The game I was trying to play kept crashing. And then PC was having issues. I'm really sorry, Purple.
Oh my god. Kay's here.
That
Kay's
stinks.
here. Kay is here. Kay is in my stream. Kay's here. Oh my god. Kay. Hi, Kay. Hi. Okay, stay calm. Breathe. Hi, Kay.
Hi, Kay. I know it's not my fault, but... Excuse me. I'm bummed for you, you know? Nobody enjoys it when stream messes up. For whatever reason. So I just hope that next time, whenever the next stream is, that it goes better. What game were you trying to play? Beyond the Map. Or Aquarist. Aquarist? It's a fish shop game.
Garth.
That makes sense.
Nah, we'll leave him here for now. All right, we can't hire anybody more. Nothing.
Hi, Stepmama's mama. You ended up playing Beyond the Map because the fish shop game was crashing. Is it a demo? Excuse me. I'm having technical issues too, I feel for you. Yeesh. Beyond the Map is a top-down survival crafting. You know, I feel like I glimpsed for a few seconds that game, but not the fish game. No, it was a key I got from Keymailer. Ah. Well, maybe the fish game just... Oh, gosh darn it. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. You'll have to try a different river. Stream in a stream. That makes sense. See what I did there? Stream in a stream. Anyway. I don't know if you guys can tell, but my voice, my throat, gosh darn it, my throat is having a tough time today. We're still gonna read. I've got my tea, just like always. But you'll notice in the redeems that I turned off temporarily the aggressive reading redeem, just because I wouldn't be able to do it well. It wouldn't work. So, you like the background? Yeah, I made the excuse me. I made the image of subscribers more transparent. I changed the opacity. That way you could still see the cool tree behind it. And unintentionally, I think it actually kind of works really well because it kind of has a, I don't know what you would call it, like a mystical effect because of how it glows. Fantastical. I don't know, I'm just making up words. You know what I mean, though. Also, Purple, I saw in the RPG game that it has the ability to be customized. I tried it. The only thing that's worked is what you see in Steam. But supposedly you're able to customize the view, like the background, when you're doing the fights and stuff. But it's not working for me, so I don't know. Maybe they lied. Maybe they lied. Allie! Thank you for the book bunk. Have to check it out. Yeah, let me, I'll show you what I mean with the part that did work. But here is your America puzzle tonight. Someone's porch. Yeah, I do. She doesn't talk. She just comes to make me smack myself in the face. It's totally fine. And Zarias comes to do the puzzle, which is also completely fine. Hello, Zarias. Let me, I want to show you what I mean on Steam. So, here, I was able to change the background, which I thought was kind of cool. But you're also you're supposed to be able to change it in other places, and it just wasn't working. Or not yet, anyway. I don't know why. But anyway, as I was saying, my throat is feeling it today. I'm probably getting sick. Hopefully not. So we're gonna read. We're gonna see how it goes. But I'm gonna keep it pretty chill. I'm not gonna try and push, strain, any of that. Warm tea. And part of the reason I don't want to push and strain is because in 2 days' time, on Thursday, myself, Tacky Corgi, Stunt Papa, and Stunt Mama will be playing Helldivers. Stunt Mama has never played Helldivers in her life, which is surprising because it's all about killing stuff, which could include your teammates. So I don't know why she wouldn't. But I gifted her a copy and I said, enough of this. Gosh darn it. I'm so sorry. I said enough of this. You are gonna play Helldivers. And so she is. So I need to make sure I'm doing just fine for Thursday night. So we'll see how it goes.
Hey everyone, we're gonna take a quick moment to recognize that Jesse is here.
Let's take a moment. All right, moment recognized. No yawning? I can't help it. It's the stream effect. I haven't yawned all day. In other fun news, though, I'm starting to design a lofted bed for my son so that he can have space underneath to, you know, have a desk and who knows what else. So yeah, I'm in the design phase right now. The only thing I have left to design is the steps to get up to the bed / storage that the steps will also provide. But that shouldn't be too difficult. So now you're yawning? I know it's contagious. My nose is getting all drippy. I don't like it. Okay. Let's do this thing before it's too late, shall we? Okay. Let's get our races going. 60 seconds on the clock. Good luck. We're on chapter 9 tonight. It is Thursday, the 23rd of February, 2102. And this time, we're at Danny's house in Helston, Harpton, Maine. Just in case anyone's interested in episode 2 of my podcast, my podcast is live. Yeah. Kay, can you post the link again so that we can pin it to the top, please? I want to make sure we, thank you. Pin. Done. So yeah, go check out Kay's podcast. Okay. Here we go. Danny shoved his way in through his front door, and it slammed behind him with a dull thud. The constant news about the recent escape from the Polygen site were getting to him. The reporters didn't paint the human experiments in a good light. They said they were not human. That they were unfeeling, uncaring, and emotionless. They were dangerous, unstable, and should not be approached under any circumstances. Danny couldn't help wondering if that was what he was. Dangerous and unstable. Was he the same as them? He certainly felt it sometimes. He knew he was different from everyone else, and when he allowed his temper to get the better of him, he was dangerous. His dad, Gemma, and Lissy could all testify to that. He could hear the voices of Tony and his friend Billy talking and laughing as he moved through the house. Tony was always inviting his friends here, and Danny rarely minded. It was his house after all. But it would be nice if he could come home and not have people in his personal space. Tony was overly sociable and didn't understand how Danny just needed solitude sometimes. Well, believe me, solitude sometimes is an absolute necessity. He made his way through the house and found them in the living room. They were laughing, and the atmosphere was easy but it did nothing to lift Danny's foul mood. He greeted them as politely as he could manage and disappeared into the kitchen, hoping he would be left alone. He thought Tony would take the hint, but the two men followed him, trying to include him in their conversation. They had been arguing about the cashiers and how they should or shouldn't be given financial aid. Danny stared at them sullenly. He wasn't in the mood for a political debate, not with everything else that was going on. "You don't know what it's like, Billy. You've never even stepped foot in Gromden," Tony said, shaking his head. Billy gave a derisive snort. "It's not like people can't work, even if they have no identification. There's always work. They're just lazy." "Huh. You don't know what you're talking about, Billy. Did you forget I grew up in the slums? I've seen firsthand what life is like for them. If it wasn't for Patricia and Graham adopting me, I'd still be there. The cashiers aren't afforded the same opportunities as everyone else, and you know it." "Well done, Jesse." You know, we're barely into the chapter, but you can't help but see the connection between the cashiers and everything else going on in real life. It's a mirror image, kind of the systemic issues that this country has. The haves and the have-nots. When you have things, it's much easier to find opportunities. Or you have less of a burden making the opportunity a reality. It's sad. Well, they shouldn't be. If they wanted to live here, they should have gone through the proper channels and arrived legally. Or they should have stayed where they were. Their countries don't exist anymore, Billy. How could they stay where they were? My family was from England. It's not even a country anymore. Danny's girlfriend's family came from Ireland. It's entirely uninhabitable now. People can't live there. Just think about what you're saying for a minute. Whoa. Danny? Your girlfriend was a cashier? Billy asked, sounding surprised that someone of Danny's social standing would date someone who used to be poor. Danny turned on him and said, "Is a cashier, not was." His usual placid and friendly tone had vanished. He wasn't in the mood for racism, or the usual classist bullshit he encountered whenever people found out about Gemma. Seriously? She's not, like, real poor, though, is she? She's not from Gromden. Billy, I'm from Gromden. Tony cut him off short before he could offend Danny any further. Sounds like this Billy guy needs a good whooping. Billy dismissed Tony's words with a wave of his hand. Yeah, but you were adopted when you were a kid, so you don't count. You're legit now. He turned to Danny and said, "What are you doing with a cashier from Gromden? You could have any woman you want." Yes, and I want Gemma. A tense silence followed. Billy seemed to have realized that he had crossed a line. I didn't mean anything by it. He gave an apologetic shrug and changed the subject. Hey, what about the news about the escapees from the genetic research facility? I mean, how crazy is that? Tony caught Danny's eye and they exchanged a tense and uneasy look. Billy carried on, completely oblivious, relishing the scandalous nature of the story. They're meant to be crazy, like psychos or something. They reckon they don't have feelings or feel pain and will kill you as soon as they look at you. He sounded so animated and excited, Danny felt bile rise in his throat as he listened. I'm sure the news is just sensationalizing things, Tony said. I bet they're not like that at all. Yeah, right, Billy said, rolling his eyes. The news says they were created as a prototype for war. They're soldiers, but they aren't human. They don't have any human rights, so they've kept them in cages all this time, and now they've got out. They're crazy. Danny could not bring himself to even try to contribute to this conversation. He couldn't be sure how much was true and how much was media frenzy, but he didn't want to think about what they were, what he was. He barged past the two men and disappeared into his room. What's up with him? Billy muttered to Tony as he left. Hope I didn't upset him about his girlfriend. I didn't know she was a cashier. Danny was thankful when he heard Tony suggest leaving and going out for food. He waited until they had left before he came back downstairs and fixed himself a sandwich. He was still stewing about what had been said before. All of it. The jibes about cashiers and the insinuation that he could do better than Gemma. As if the fact that she wasn't an official citizen of New America made her somehow worthless. And of course, he had been riled by the discussion about the escapees. He'd been trying his hardest to think of anything else since the news broke, but that was impossible. Just like we try not to think about Kay taking first place. Oh wait, it was just the two of us. Well, one of us had to win. He had been dreaming of it. Dreaming of being locked in a cage while men in white coats poked and prodded. Dreaming that people were running from him in the streets and the police had him surrounded. He had been permanently on edge since he heard the news. Danny sat on the sofa, in the dark and the quiet, trying to bring himself to finish eating. Not that he was hungry, he just knew that he ought to eat. He didn't know how long he'd sat there, lost in his thoughts, but he wasn't feeling any better, only worse. More anxious and annoyed. He heard Tony approaching well before he made it to the door, and he had intended to get up and hide out of the way, but he couldn't seem to motivate himself to move. At least Tony had left Billy behind and had returned alone. Sorry about Billy. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't know what it's like for cashiers. Tony started as soon as he entered the house. Why do you hang around with him? He wouldn't want anything to do with you if you still lived in the slums, Danny said. Neither would you. It's not as though our paths would have crossed if we weren't put in school together. Danny felt his annoyance peak. Well, maybe not, but I would still treat you with decency if I met you. Not like Billy. He thinks he's automatically better than everyone or everybody outside of Helston. He snapped. It's not just Billy. Everyone thinks that in Helston. Danny couldn't understand why he was defending that idiot. I'm not like that. Yeah, well, you're not like everybody else, are you? It happened so fast. The blinding anger, the inability to think clearly. He didn't quite know what he was doing as he grabbed Tony by the shoulder and slammed his body into the wall. He could hear screams, hear his friend pleading. The distant sound of begging rang in his head, but he couldn't seem to acknowledge it. It came on fast, but he knew he was in the grip of another episode. He wasn't in control of himself at that moment, but he was aware enough to know he didn't want to hurt his friend. His fist came back and he drove it forward purposefully, missing Tony's face by mere millimeters, his knuckles smashing into the wall with a sickening thump. Tony yelled, a terrified scream escaping his mouth. Danny dropped him to the floor and hissed at him through gritted teeth. Get out. I wasn't talking to you, Kay, just because you keep winning. He was talking to Tony. Tony heaved himself up from the floor as quickly as he could and bolted through the door. Danny didn't have time to worry about his friend, or why this kept happening. What little control he possessed had deserted him. His head lurched forward involuntarily and slammed into the wall, and his fists came up and pounded it over and over again. He could hear screaming, a type of blood-curdling noise that sounded almost inhuman and was unnerving to listen to. It took him a moment to realize the noises were coming from him. He screamed harder with this realization, but the confusion in his brain and the vague knowledge that he didn't like the strange wailing sound made him hurl his head forward again, smashing it into the wall, leaving bloody marks on the crisp white finish. He spun around and saw the black glass coffee table, and his arm smashed through it, shattering the glass. The pain was somehow soothing and satisfying, but it wasn't enough. He picked up the chrome table leg and whacked it down over his own thigh with as much force as he could muster. Again and again, the pain somehow easing the rage within him. He turned once more to the wall and slammed his head into it like a madman, still screaming. Still raging, yet still needing the noise to stop. He lifted the leg of the table again and turned around, coming face to face with the TV. The table leg smashed into the screen and he ripped the television from the wall and threw it across the room. It sailed into the large, ornate mirror hanging on the back wall, and it shattered into 1,000 pieces. The noise was enough to jar his senses. He took a sharp breath. He was seeing sense again. The blind insanity was lifting, and he could see through the hazy fog. He took in the devastation in front of him and fell to his knees, exhausted and confused. He tried to remember, but nothing made sense. What had caused this? Who was here? Had he hurt somebody? And we're reading monotone. He took in his surroundings and realized he was at Tony's house, not his house. No, his house. He lived here now, he remembered. He couldn't think straight. He couldn't remember, and he was unnaturally exhausted. His body ached, his limbs seemed so heavy, and his senses were dulled, fuzzy like his brain just couldn't process anything. He stayed on the floor a while until his body decided to work, drifting in and out of sleep. Hi, Angelic. It's a very light blue, but it's there. KKK. Just determined to win. Methinks I'm taking the podium today. It's very possible. There is a break in the story. Looks like your chances are slimming out, though, as more people join. When Danny woke, he took in the broken room and knew without a doubt he had caused this, though he had no memory of doing it. He tried to think back of the events earlier. Tony was here before, and Billy. Billy had made him angry. He put his hands to his head and tried to remember. Had he hurt Billy? He could see streaks of blood on the wall, but he didn't know who it belonged to. He noticed the holes in the wall, and the pain in his knuckles seemed to sing to him. The memory of hitting the wall assaulted his mind, and Tony's terrified face flashed before his eyes. He searched around in frantic panic, hoping with everything he had that he wouldn't find the body of his friend. He was coming back to himself now. His cognitive functions were returning, and his thoughts were becoming more ordered and less chaotic. Slowly, he raised himself up from the floor and searched the rest of the house. The damage had been confined to one room, and there were no bodies, so it was safe to assume he hadn't hurt anybody. Tony must have escaped before the full effect of the episode happened. Danny sat on the floor with tears starting to form. Why did this keep happening? What was so wrong with him that he couldn't control his temper? The things that were being said about the escapees, that they were dangerous, that they were crazy, were they true? Was it true of him too? In that moment, he hated everything about himself and what he was. He tried so hard to be like everyone else, but he wasn't. He was a monster. For a long time, he sat on the floor, wishing he was somebody else. Hours passed, and he couldn't bring himself to move. It was getting light outside before he realized he hadn't even checked on Tony. He berated himself further for being so caught up in his own self-pity that he hadn't made sure his best friend was unharmed. He checked his phone, but there were no messages or missed calls. At least that meant nobody else knew about it. He didn't know how he could explain to his dad that it had happened again. He'd promised after what happened with Lissy that he would keep control of his temper. If Tony wanted him to leave, he'd have nowhere else to go. Michelle wouldn't have him back in the house, not while Lissy lived there, and he couldn't blame her. He didn't have the guts to call Tony. He texted him instead. "Are you okay?" He didn't know what else to say. "I'm sorry, I just lost my temper and almost killed you." Just didn't seem like the sort of thing he could say in a text. A moment later, his phone pinged. The message read, "Yeah, I'm fine. Are you okay? You really scared me." "I know. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" "I'm not coming back until I know it's safe, Danny." Danny had nothing to say. He wanted to tell his friend that it was safe, and he wouldn't hurt him. But was it ever safe? It does make you wonder why all of a sudden he's having more of these episodes. It makes me wonder if there's some sort of link between him and the other XJs. Like maybe he's the, like, this is gonna sound weird because they're like robots, but maybe he's the alpha or something. Sorry, Kay. Had to ruin your winning streak. How does my reading voice sound to you all? Does it sound okay? Wasn't nice of me to let you win. You're so kind. Thank you for sharing the limelight. Very appreciative. It sounds good? Okay. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so break in the story, which is why I paused there. Danny began cleaning up the mess he had made and then called Gemma. She could instantly tell something was wrong. He didn't want to tell her at first, but she managed to coax it out of him. "Do you want me to come and help?" she asked. "I can get the train to Bramley. It only takes an hour to walk from there to Helston." That's a long walk. Danny smiled. These were the reasons he loved Gemma so much. These were the things that made her worth her weight in gold. It would take her almost 2 hours to get here, and she would have to walk such a long distance in the cold in an area she had no legal right to be in. If she was stopped by the border police, they would arrest her, maybe even beat her. Yet, he knew it wasn't an empty offer. If he asked her to, she would do it without hesitation. Anything to make him feel better. Of course, he couldn't take her up on her offer. He gracefully declined, but promised he would see her later. She offered to meet him at the restaurant where she worked. Again, he smiled and shook his head. She would never allow him to meet her at home. She was too ashamed of where she lived to allow him inside. Plus, he knew it caused arguments with her brother. Craig hated that she was dating a rich guy from Helston. After Danny had cleared up the debris, he went to see his dad. He had hoped for some sort of comfort or understanding, but as usual, all he got was lectures. "You can't keep doing this, Danny. You need to learn to control your temper. What's going to happen if you kill someone? What if you killed Tony?" He went on, and Danny felt worse for it. No matter how many times he tried to explain, he couldn't make anyone see that he couldn't help it. He hated himself so much for how he acted. He knew he should be able to stop, or not get so angry in the first place. And he tried. He really did try, but whenever it happened, it was like something else took over. Like he had no control. "Where is Tony now? Have you spoken to him?" Frank asked. "I texted him." He felt so unhappy, but Frank didn't offer any sympathy. "You need to sort it out with him, Danny. It's not like you can come home. Michelle would never allow it, and Lissy is still afraid of you." Danny's heart sank even further. "Do you want me to call him and try to explain?" he offered begrudgingly. Danny could only imagine how that conversation would go. Danny is different. Danny is dangerous, but please don't worry, he doesn't mean to hurt you. Oh, and don't kick him out because he's too dangerous for us to have at home. It wouldn't surprise Danny in the slightest if his dad tried to offer Tony money to keep him. Money fixed everything as far as Frank was concerned. No, I'll talk to him myself, he muttered, and got up to leave, wishing he hadn't bothered coming to see his dad in the first place. Just like you wish I hadn't been in that race at all. Cackle, cackle, cackle. "60 seconds on the clock." He thought about confiding in Jensen, but those were never easy conversations to have. What he needed was someone to listen and understand, not someone to ask endless science-based questions. Jensen was nice enough, but he always made Danny feel like an experiment instead of a person. Shaking his head, he reminded himself that to Jensen, he was a science experiment. He left his dad's office feeling worse for the visit. He had pretty much exhausted his options of people he could talk to. He couldn't speak to Michelle, she wouldn't understand, but he was hoping his dad wouldn't tell her about this anyway. Lissy would find out, but it wouldn't do much to ease her fears if she knew that even his own best friend wasn't safe. He decided to go into the city and buy replacements for the furniture he had trashed. At least that was something he could fix. A few hours later, his house looked like new, except of course for the holes in the wall where his fist had gone. He would need to hire a plasterer to fix that. There was nothing else to do except apologize, properly. He picked up his phone and dialed, holding his breath as he waited for Tony to answer. "Danny, hey. Tony, are you okay?" There was a slight pause before he heard his friend exhale and say, "Yes, I'm okay. Are you okay?" "No, not really. Tony, I'm so sorry. I never meant to. I would never..." He trailed off. The fact was he couldn't say what he would never do, not with certainty. He wasn't in control of his actions when things like that happened. "I know, man, I know. Look, are you at home? I'm coming home and we can talk about it, okay?" He ended the call, and Danny had nothing else to do but sit and nervously wait. Tony knew everything about him and had for a long time. He had witnessed a meltdown before when they were younger, but Danny had never attacked him before. He hoped Tony could fill in the blanks for him. He still didn't understand what had caused this last episode. Tony arrived a half an hour later, and Danny didn't even know where to begin. He was so ashamed of himself. The atmosphere between them was uncomfortable, maybe even frosty. Tony seemed on edge, and Danny couldn't help but notice how he lingered in the doorway as though he was too afraid to come inside. "Are you feeling better?" he asked from the other side of the room. Danny knew that was code for, "Are you safe to be around now?" He nodded. Tears filled his eyes, and there was a begging to his voice as he apologized again and again. "I don't know what happened. I usually get more warning than that. It's just been so hard these last few days with the news about the escape, and I've been so on edge. I know it sounds like excuses, and there are no excuses for hurting people. I'm just so sorry it happened. I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to hurt you." "Oh, okay, your podium spot's looking a little shaky. Or I should say, the top spot. Tony,
What's this? What's this?
Good
What's
God.
this? What's this? What's this? What's this?
Gemma scared the shit out of me. How you doing, Gemma? It's good to see you. Even if you are gonna scare me. I even lost my place. Okay, I found it again. Evening, getting ready to lurk while I do my stream. Fantastic. What, is it gonna be DBD tonight, or do you have something else in mind? Gemma's probably going to win this race now and throw all of our numbers off track. DBD tonight, see? My instincts kicking in. Well, I hope you have a good time. Tony walked forward and embraced his friend, clapping him on the back. I know, man. I know you don't, and I know you didn't mean to. That doesn't make it any less frightening, though. I thought you were gonna kill me. I mean, when your fist came at me, I thought that was it for me. Oh, that's right. Yeah. You're doing the charity thing. That's really cool. Biddies for titties. I hope it's going well. It's a great cause. Silence fell, then the sudden uncomfortable realization that they were still hugging and Danny was crying. Tony cleared his throat and clapped Danny on the back again as he stepped back from his embrace. Verticat, hello. Lurky while I munch on some dinner. Dinner. Do enjoy your tasty treats. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I can stand here and pretend that you didn't scare me yesterday. There was no warning. I knew you were in a mood or whatever, but I didn't think you would try to kill me. I mean, what did I do? You let Gemma win. That's what. Just vibe into the music. Renato, it is good to see you, sir. Danny was quiet for a moment. I don't remember. Oh, well, that's super helpful, Tony said, sarcasm dripping from every word. I thought you had a photographic memory or whatever. You never forget anything. You remember things you don't even know you knew. Always a pleasure, my liege. No, the pleasure is all mine. Danny looked down. Normally that's true, but after something like this, I don't. When it's over and I come out of it, I don't remember what happened or what caused it. And I can't think straight after. It's scary sometimes. I don't remember what happened yesterday. All I know is Billy was here and we were arguing about Gemma. Oh, by the way, Gemma, you're in this book. Really? You want me to bookmark myself? Okay. Ow. And then I have hazy memories of you and me almost hurting you. But I don't know what happened. I was hoping you could tell me. Oh, right. Well, you were upset about Billy and his views on cashers. You said he was elitist. And were asking why I have anything to do with him. And I pointed out that we wouldn't have anything to do with each other if I was still a Gromden. Still a Gromden Grot. I haven't heard that term yet. Then you said something like you would still respect me though, and I said you're not like everyone else. Danny closed his eyes. He remembered the feelings of anger and shame as his friend reminded him he was different. He felt the anger surge in his chest again, and his hand closed into a fist. That was it, he said flatly. That was what caused it. I already know I'm different, Tony. I don't need reminding of it. Tony stared at him. I didn't mean it like that. I meant that not everyone with your money or upbringing is as respectful to cashers. Jeez. You almost killed me because I said something and you didn't like it? He put his hands up to his head. Danny, we've been friends for 7 years. I know you told me before about these meltdowns, but I didn't think that you would ever attack me. How do I know it won't happen again? How do I know that the next time it won't be my head through the wall? There was no warning. I don't know if you're safe to be here, if I'm safe with you. Or with you here. Helps if I read the last word. Danny couldn't bring himself to answer. The truth was, he didn't know if Tony was safe either. He looked down at the floor, his shoulders rounded. He felt so alone and so very guilty. Do you want me to leave? On a Walmart run, hope to be back before long. Enjoy Walmart. Oh, Kay's back to her shenanigans again. She was just toying with us, giving us this feeling of freedom. But deep down, it was all a coy plan. Do you want me to leave? He asked, full of dread that Tony was going to kick him out. He really would have nowhere else to go. No, Tony shook his head. But some sort of warning would be helpful. Are you afraid of me? He asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. But not right now. Now you're just my friend, and you're upset, and I want to make you feel better. Yesterday you weren't my friend, though. Yesterday, well, to be truthful, Danny, you were terrifying. I mean, you didn't even look like you. I didn't mean... I know. Tony cut him off, holding his hand up in the air. Look, we're going around in circles now. I know you didn't mean to. I know you say you can't help it. But you're going to have to help it if you want us to be friends. If anything like that ever happens again. He couldn't finish his sentence, but they both knew what he was saying. Danny nodded, and Tony walked by him and disappeared into his room. He closed the door behind him, leaving Danny to wonder if he really was forgiven, or if Tony was just too afraid to speak his mind. Tony didn't emerge from his room for the rest of the day, which did nothing to quell Danny's fears. After a while, he decided to go to the restaurant to see Gemma. Danny entered the restaurant, and the sight of Gemma eased his anxious mind immediately. She was busy and hadn't noticed him yet, and he took a moment to watch her. She always smiled and was always pleasant to people, even though they treated her like she was worthless. People were mean and disrespectful towards her, as if the fact she held no form of identification somehow made her insignificant. He ordered a drink while he waited for her shift to finish, and chatted a little with Terry, one of the other waitresses. She always made pathetic attempts to flirt with him. It was sad. He knew she couldn't understand what he saw in Gemma, and it was laughable how jealous she was. Her face turned sour when Gemma approached, wearing her coat. "Hey," she greeted him, leaning in for a kiss on the cheek. They left together, Danny's arm draped over Gemma's shoulder. Terry watched with a look of envy, no doubt wondering what was so special about Gemma that she was dating one of Harpton Man's richest legitimates. Danny walked her home. It was easier than driving. Cars were an unusual occurrence in Grompton, and Gemma didn't like to draw attention to herself. Being in her company was easy, and the stresses of the last 2 days ebbed away as he listened to her beautiful voice and breathed in her soothing scent. They talked as they walked, and she asked him about what happened with Tony. It was funny, but the things he had been searching for all day he found in Gemma. She was understanding and accepting. She listened to him, and she was sympathetic. She didn't tell him he should control himself better. She fully accepted and believed him when he said he couldn't help it. And she didn't show any fear of what he was or what he was capable of. She loved him for who and what he was, not what he ought to be. They arrived at her house, and she lingered outside a while, leaning against the wall. "Thank you, Gemma. You always make everything better." She shook her head. "I didn't do anything." She sounded so surprised. "I love you, you know? I do. And I love you too." She leaned into him and hugged her to his chest, planting a gentle kiss on the top of her head. She left him at the door, still too ashamed of her meager home to invite him inside. He had told her so many times that it didn't matter what she had or didn't have. It was her he was here to see, not her house, but she would never relent. Just like I won't. It's gonna be you and me, Kay, doing a dance to the finish. He wandered back towards the restaurant, feeling renewed. He felt in a much better place now and felt much more confident that he could tackle his problem with Tony. He didn't know how she managed it, but he loved her for it. And that concludes Chapter 9. Well, I had wondered when we were gonna see and hear about the other side of the story, if you will. That was pretty good timing. Oh, and speaking of timing, I forgot to keep an eye out, but it looks like ads are about to start. So, as per usual, I'm gonna run them to get them out of the way. Oh, I wish my throat wasn't bothering me so much. It is not helpful. My watch just told me I earned my standing goal, but I've been sitting, so that doesn't explain much. Chew. Hello, sir. Chew, did I understand correctly that it's your birthday? Or was that yesterday? Neither? Then maybe I was hearing things? Your birthday was in August. Okay, then I'm definitely off track. Never mind. Did you hear that Stunt Mama will be playing Helldivers on Thursday? Today might have been my butt day. I went to the gastroenterologist. Ooh. Fun. Gastroenterologist. That's always a good time. I hope you didn't make an ass of yourself. Oh, really? That's awesome. During the day or with you at night? She'll be joining me. So it's going to be me, Corgi, Stunt Papa, and Stunt Mama. And we might do a little switching around if other people are interested, but Stunt Mama will be playing for sure. So Thursday at 5 o'clock Central is the start time. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to watch her die. Not at all. They thought I was gas. They thought you were a gas. Well, that's good. I'm not very animated tonight. My throat started really acting and feeling weird today, and I've been a little sniffly. So I've it's been a very calm stream. Very calm. We played some last night against the bots in a mega city. It was nice to be back spilling oil. Lovely. Yeah, it looks I did an update today as well. I'm not sure what it was about, but I just saw that there was an update, so. All right. Put that over there. Let's see if we can conquer chapter 10. Firebeave, hello. Chapter 10 is Friday the 24th, and we're back in Jay's apartment. Which means Adele the robot. Dun dun dun. It was a relief to take the weight from her feet as she eased her tired and aching body into the chair. Keeping her eye on this J person was proving to be a difficult task. She didn't trust him and was certain he would report her to the authorities as soon as he got a chance. She also knew she couldn't keep him here. in this small place forever. He'd already expressed he needed to work. That he meant he would be missed. People may come looking for him, and this thought troubled her. The new expandable napalm launcher is delicious. Ooh. Okay, say no more. I want to be surprised on Thursday. But I am definitely intrigued. She heard him moving and walked back to her sentry position by the door, even though it made no sense when she held all the power in the situation. Still, the fear of sitting without being given permission was a terrifying prospect. It was absurd to think it, when there was nothing he could do to her, but she still dared not to be caught using his furniture, as though she were his equal. "Good morning," he spoke to her as he emerged from his room. She didn't know what he expected her to say, but it seemed he was waiting for a response. She stared at him, noticing how her continuous silence and lack of communication set off his stress response, but she couldn't understand why. "Did you sleep?" he asked her. Her heart pounded in her chest. Did he know she had slept? Just for a short time, less than 30 minutes, but she had no permission to sleep. "Do you want some coffee?" Confusion hit her at once. She couldn't understand why he was treating her as though she was his equal. She looked at him through narrowed eyes, suspicious of his intentions, but she couldn't bring herself to answer him. How should she know if she wanted coffee or not? She watched him busy himself in the kitchen. He made 2 cups of coffee, even though she hadn't answered his question, and he carefully placed one on the counter beside her. Did anybody call for me yesterday?" His voice did not sound confident when he spoke. "No." Adele, I'm gonna have to use my phone. I need to deal with some work stuff. Like making sure Firebeave doesn't win again. I mean, awkward. Only 4 races remain. He was looking at her with fearful eyes. She noticed how his body was showing signs of stress. He was still afraid, but he was getting braver. So far, he had been too afraid to talk or to get close to her, but his confidence was growing. She knew they would need to communicate with one another if she wanted him to help her. But every time they spoke and every minute she spent in his presence without threat was time for him to become less afraid. If she didn't keep him sufficiently afraid of her, what would stop him from contacting the authorities? She still didn't answer him, or she still hadn't answered him. "Why don't you speak?" he asked. There was a slight tone of anger to his voice, diluting the fear. This wasn't good. He was already becoming less fearful around. I swear to God, I can speak. The silence drew on, and he spoke with caution as he asked, "Are you going to allow me to leave the house today? We need food, and I need to go to the bank to reinstate my digital banking." She still didn't answer. She knew she couldn't keep him confined here forever, but how could she allow him to leave? He would surely inform the authorities at his first opportunity. "Adele, please. You can't keep me prisoner forever. Please, you've got to allow me out." She was still yet to answer him, unable to think what to do for the best. Her mind worked at speed, weighing up her options until the sound of footsteps approaching the door outside interrupted her thoughts. A loud knock followed, causing Adele to jump with fright. She turned on Jay, a look of pure accusation on her face. Jay! Jay! The knocking continued as when accompanied by the cheerful voice of a young girl. Adele looked at Jay and saw fear in him increase. His face turned ashen, and his heart beat faster. Jay, are you home? The voice of the young girl called to him. Adele stood in front of the door, readying herself for attack. Please don't hurt her, she's just a kid. She could hear the begging in his whispered tones. Please, let me get rid of her. I'll tell her to go away. Adele offered a single nod and took a step to the right, positioning herself behind the door, still close enough to grab him should he try to make a run for it. As she peered through the gap between the hinges of the door, she saw a young girl no older than 13 at a guess. She knew she would need to remember this girl, and observed her fastidiously. Now there's a word I haven't seen in forever. Jesse. Oh, is this the one that you said wouldn't show up, but now it is? Well, you have my official thanks now. Mad Locust. Daddy was reading while we were playing with balls. Some were puzzling about it, but it is what it is. Book Daddy does what he does, and you better like it, or else. Mad, it's good to see you. The girl had long, dark, curly hair and big lips that looked as though they had been painted. She wore a green blazer with the emblem of a sword pointing down through 3 colored rings, and the words St. Mary's printed underneath. A flicker of recognition sparked in Adele. They had walked. I'm just gonna take a sip because. Obviously, I'm nailing it. I like it. That's good. They had walked past a large building with children outside wearing the same clothing. The same emblem was flying from flags outside the building. That must be where she lived. Adele's eyes flitted to a small framed photograph of the same girl displayed on the shelf in Jay's kitchen. The girl was important. Good God. The girl was important. Important to this Jay person. Important, you see? You hear? It's gonna be a long night, I can tell. Adele listened to the exchange between Jay and the girl. He was apologizing, tell her he had forgotten their plans and he was sick. Gabriella, I will make it up to you when I'm feeling better. I'm really sorry to let you down. Uh-oh, what are you getting modded for? Oh, it's fine. I just imagine a website where he stares intensely into the cam while he sandpapers wood in his garage. Onlywood.com. If someone pays enough, I'll use the electric one. Adele noticed the ease with which this man could lie. His face stayed passive and didn't change color. He didn't seem to have any increase in perspiration, and his heart rate didn't increase. Although, since he was already under stress, she decided that observation wouldn't be a fair or accurate test. She noted his sigh of relief as he closed the door and leaned his forehead against it with his closed eyes, but she didn't understand the gesture. She stood stationary for a moment before working up the courage to speak. It wasn't easy. She wasn't used to asking questions or speaking without permission, but it was a barrier she would have to push through if she was going to get anywhere with this human. Firebeave. Coming in for the kill. I mean win. Maybe it's both. Who knows? You care for that girl. It was more of a statement than a question. He seemed startled by her sudden bout of speech, and he turned to look at her with a face full of confusion. Yes. Who is she to you? Adele asked. Her speech was aggressive and to the point. She's just a girl that I help. I sponsor her to go to school and pay for her place at the children's home, he said with an unsure frown. She offered him a single curt nod while she considered what this meant. She didn't know the term sponsor or school, but the children's home must be where she lived. If he was helping her, then he must care for her. And in her experience, people would do almost anything to protect the people they cared for, especially children. Back at Polygen, if she had to extract information or perform interrogations, people would give up their secrets far quicker if the lives of children were threatened. People always begged harder for the lives of their children than for their own. This behavior was a mystery to Adele, but she accepted it as a human norm. Psyching herself up for the threat she was about to make, she looked at him and said, You are safe now. No matter who you tell or what you do, I will not kill you. She stared at him with cold, hollowed eyes and continued, I know where that girl lives. I know her name and what she looks like. She will die if you betray me. Adele noted how the man's heart rate skyrocketed and his stress response, good grief, elevated. This was the effect she had been anticipating. Please, she's just a kid. She's got nothing to do with this. Don't bring her into this. She's no threat to you. He pleaded with her. You are a threat. If you care for her, you will help me. If they come looking for me, I will kill her before I do anything else. She glared at him with determination in her eyes. This was easier than she had expected. You help me, or she dies. Jay was stunned. I will. I was. Please don't hurt her. Adele walked away from him. It was the first time she had turned her back to him since they met. She was satisfied with how things were turning out. Jay would always fear for the life of that child, but since he no longer needed to worry about his own life coming to an abrupt ending, they should find it easier to communicate with one another now. I mean, technically logical as far as ones and zeros are concerned. There was no doubt in her mind that she was right about this. The fact she had left him by the unlocked door, but he had not tried to leave, confirmed it. She assumed the dread of her threats against the young girl is what kept him in his place. She held his phone out to him in silence. He stared at her with a bewildered expression as he took it from her, as though he didn't know if she was serious or not. Peanut butter-filled pretzels are amazing. What? Did you mean to type that here? It was very random. Yes, they are yummy. I mean, if you say so. How about a Nutella-filled pretzel? And I'm not even really a pretzel person, but if you take the salt off and then add Nutella, I would probably go for it. The hours passed, and they hadn't spoken to each other since Gabriella left. Doubts and fear forced their way into Adele's mind. The brief period of bravery she had experienced before had vanished, and she had reverted to feeling unsure and afraid. She was too fearful of humans, and too used to obeying orders to give any. Jay eventually broke the uncomfortable silence. Adele? Her eyes traveled towards him, and he seemed to shrink under her intense stare. I need to sort out my banking, and we need groceries. Can I go now? Am I allowed to leave? Not alone, she answered in her usual unfriendly and abrupt speech. You want to come with me? He asked, dismayed. She nodded her head slowly. Right, he said uncertainly as he looked her up and down. We need to get you some clothes that fit, and some shoes. Jesse. I just wanted you to know I'd let you in. That's what a gentleman would do. She hadn't thought of that. She should try to blend in with the humans. Here. He handed her a plain black hoodie and a pair of fresh socks, then told her to cover her head with the hood. The idea of leaving this place of safety was unnerving. Outside, there were many humans, many new noises, smells, and sensations. How did I lose my place? Oh, too much to take in at once. She had barely slept since her arrival, and too much could push her over the edge. She remembered how close she came to meltdown as she walked to this place 3 days ago. She silently followed him out of the door. If he was afraid, he didn't show it. He did a good job of pretending everything was normal as they walked down the street together, and she tried her best to remain calm, but every sound had her head spinning. Jay stopped outside a posh-looking glass-fronted building and turned to look at her. Adele, you can't come in here without shoes. They will think you are a cashier. Cashiers aren't allowed into the mainstream banks. She narrowed her eyes, feeling her uncertainty and suspicion grow. How long will you be? He shook his head. Not long. It should only take a minute or two to get my cards reinstated. She fixed him with her cold stare. I can hear everything that is being spoken about inside that building. I will know if you tell them about me. He didn't have any answer to that. She didn't know if he was planning to get help or not, but if that had been his intention, he would be having second thoughts about it now. She waited outside and listened to everything. He was right about it not taking long. He was in and out in a few minutes. He didn't speak a word to anyone about her, and nobody suspected a thing. Next, he led her to a shoe shop and ushered her inside. What's your shoe size? Renato, Father, I hope your day has been amazing and I hope you get a nice bookmark soon. It's not been too bad. My throat is feeling sore a little bit. So I'm just keeping the reading as calm as I can so that we can still enjoy the story. And then, we'll deal with it later. Too much opera singing? I mean, on occasion, when I have the house to myself, I pop into the garage and just let her rip. The acoustics in there are magnifique. Don Giovanni? Yes, quite. The question sounded so casual, and panic hit her out of nowhere. She did not know the answer to this question. She swallowed hard and looked to the floor, awaiting the searing pain that would surely follow her ignorance. Adele? He reached forward as if to touch her arm, a look of concern on his face. She jerked herself out of his reach before he got close to her. It wasn't intentional, it was more like an involuntary impulse. He frowned at her and asked again, "Your shoe size, what is it?" Adele could not answer. She didn't know the answer. Jay seemed to realize. "Have you ever owned a pair of shoes?" he whispered to her. Without waiting for her answer, he pulled a sizing gauge off the wall and told her to put her foot in it. He measured her feet and then asked, "Do you see anything you like?" Adele didn't understand the question. She stared at him with a blank expression. He looked around the shop and picked up a pair of black flats in her size. What about these? She couldn't even bring herself to look at them. What about them? She wondered. What exactly was he asking? He let out an exasperated exhale. "Try them on," he said. She obeyed and slipped them onto her feet. "Do they feel okay?" She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how shoes should feel. It felt strange having her feet encased inside something solid. It was a new sensation, but beyond, she had no opinion of it. Her silence seemed to irritate him, but she didn't understand why. Her whole life had been mostly silent. "Right," he said in a huff, more to himself than to her. He held out his hands for the shoes, and she obliged, peeling them off her feet and handing them over. He marched up to the counter and paid for them, declining a box. "She wants to wear them now," he said to the cashier without much more explanation. They left the shop, and she followed him into a convenience store. She observed Jay as he picked up a basket and started haphazardly shoving items into it. "What do you like to eat?" he asked her. Again, he sounded so casual. She stared at him. How was she supposed to answer that question? She didn't like to eat anything. She wasn't supposed to have any opinion or preference about what she ate. The food had been plain and bland at Polygen, and most of her nutritional needs were met with the green juice they served her with each small meal. He let out another huff and puffed his cheeks out. "You're not making this easy, are you?" He filled his basket with pre-packaged convenience food and bread and milk. She watched in silence as he paid for the food and followed him out of the store without a word. The The streets were busy as they walked back to his apartment, and she was finding it difficult to remain calm as her senses were bombarded from every direction. Adele? Is everything okay? He sounded uneasy, and she turned to look at him, unsure of what he was asking. You seem jumpy. You said you wouldn't hurt me, but you don't seem... You don't look okay. He choked out. She could sense the fear emanating from him, taste it even. I won't harm you. I'm stable, she said, her robotic voice doing nothing to help him relax. Akarn. I'm screwed. I just tried to combine car and horn and came up with Karn. A car honked its horn as it passed them, and she spun around with unnatural speed, her heart in her mouth, startled by the sudden assault on her ears. Jay let out a startled yelp as her body coiled up in reflex. Sorry, he muttered. You made me jump. He let out a nervous laugh. Adele glared at him, unable to understand the laughter that just escaped his lips. You know, for being a very advanced, smart robot, she doesn't understand much of anything outside of her lab. They arrived back at his apartment, and he put away the shopping. Hungry? He asked. She was, but she couldn't bring herself to admit to the weakness. Did it matter if she was hungry? Adele, why do you never answer? He asked her. Her eyes fell to the floor. How could she explain? Here. He approached her with caution, holding out the cup of instant noodles he had made. She made no move to take it, but Kay has made lots of moves to try and win the race, which I think she probably did. The Grand Prix, I mean. She made no move to take it, so he placed it on the table and made another for himself. Eat it while it's hot. She obeyed the order. It was all she knew how to do. Sit down, he told her. Again, she did what she was told. Right, he said more to himself than to her. He stared at her thoughtfully. Do you like the noodles? His head tilted to the side as he paid close attention to her face. You don't like questions, do you? The fear grew. He knew she was afraid. Showing fear was not allowed, not ever. It's okay, he said, holding his hands up in a gesture she recognized as surrender. He seemed to be much more relaxed since leaving the apartment. He kept trying to talk to her, and she found it unnerving. Her plan seemed to have backfired spectacularly. The small amount of power she held before had swung the other way. He no longer seemed so afraid of her, but she was still beyond terrified of her new situation. That is your room now. He pointed to the closed door beside his own bedroom. There's a bed in there, and all the things you will need. You already know where the bathroom is. Towels are in the cupboard over there. He pointed to another door close to the bathroom. Make yourself at home, I guess. He shrugged and smiled at her, leaving her confused by what he meant. He left the table and wandered to the kitchen and pottered around in it, but not in the same nervous way he had the first day she had been there. Adele stayed where she was. Like a statue, she watched Jay and tried to understand how he was suddenly so calm in her company. Had he taken what she said at face value? He was no longer the one in danger, so he was no longer afraid? She hadn't expected this. She had assumed he would still be wary of her. So, he turned to look at her, and her heart kicked up a gear. You don't have to sit there all day. You can move. He said it in such an offhand way, as though he were speaking to a guest, not his captor. He gestured to her bedroom door with his open hand. Why don't you go check out your bedroom? Her eyes traveled in the direction he was pointing. She stood without speech and walked towards the room, but she noted his sigh of relief as the door closed behind her. She couldn't make sense of him. Was he afraid or not? She looked around the room. It was small and plain, like her cell at Polygen, but there was a window, she noticed with amazement. She tentatively walked towards it and looked out into the street below. She could hear Jay talking on the phone and listened with interest, but he gave nothing away about his current situation. He was apologizing and promising to make up working hours. For now, it looked as though she was safe. He really was going to help her. Adele didn't leave the room for the rest of the day. She sat in silence and switched off her mind, listening only to Jay's movements to make sure she was still safe here. She allowed no thought or feeling to penetrate her mind, and even as the day turned to night, she still did not move. This is how she was expected to be. This was familiar to her. It was all she'd ever known. There was a gentle knock on her door, and she almost jumped out of her skin. She dared not move, as ridiculous as it was. Adele, may I come in? The door opened a fraction, and he peeked his head through the crack. I'm going to bed. Do you need anything? She could not understand him. What would she possibly need? He didn't react to her silence. He only nodded his head and offered a weak smile. I just thought I'd check. Help yourself to whatever you want, he said. He took a sharp intake of breath, and she could tell his next words were something he was afraid to speak. Please don't come into my room, he stuttered. It's just, please don't. He closed the door, and she heard his long, slow exhale as his own door closed with a soft click. He was still very much afraid, she decided. She could tell he was having trouble sleeping as she listened to him toss and turn and sigh in his bed. It wasn't until she heard his long, slow, rhythmic breathing and gentle snores that she finally allowed herself to sleep. She awoke the next morning, and she could tell Jay was still sleeping. She felt better today. A full night's sleep and a solid 6 hours of sitting in the quiet had reset her body. She rose from the bed and made it up. Then, not knowing what else to do, she continued to sit. She heard Jay wake and listened to his movements. He made a drink. It smelled like the coffee he had given her before. It seemed he did this each morning. She listened to him walking around the apartment. Then came the sound of the shower running. She heard his bare feet pad back past her room and into his. Then the shuffling sound of clothing being unfurled and worn. Next, she listened to him walk back to the kitchen, and the scent of something burning hit her nose. Adele did not move from the bed. She did not know if she should. Did she have permission to leave this room? Hours passed, and she still hadn't moved. She heard the knocking again and tensed up. Are you awake? He spoke gently. I've made you some coffee. Come out if you want it. She didn't know what to do. She knew she couldn't stay in this room forever, even if she wanted to. Hesitantly, she opened the door and walked with careful and controlled movements to the table where the hot drink was waiting. Truth be told, she didn't like the taste. She wasn't used to drinking hot liquids. and it was a strong flavor she had never tasted before, but she didn't know how to refuse things. Refusing anything had never been an option for her. "Did you sleep well?" Jay asked from behind her. She spun around at an inhumane speed, causing Jay to almost scream as he took a step back away from her, hyperventilating. She stared at him, unable to understand what he was asking and why she had startled him. His hand covered his mouth as he recovered himself and breathed normally again. He was looking at her as though he had something to say. "You don't speak much," he said. She didn't answer him. It was more of a statement than a question anyway. He cocked his head to the side and looked at her face. "It would help me if you would talk." She still had nothing to say. "How can I help you if you don't speak to me? How can I know what you need?" She swallowed hard. How could she explain even she didn't know what she needed? "Look, I agreed to help you, and I will, but you need to talk to me. We need to start trusting each other." "Yes," she said. "Yes, what? Yes, you trust me. Yes, you will talk more. Yes, you agree with me. What?" His voice sounded angry or frustrated. She tried harder to get her words out to him. "I will try to talk. It isn't easy." "Will you answer my questions?" he asked. She was doing a terrible job of showing willing. She just didn't know how to talk to a human. To anyone, really. "Will you at least try?" he asked her. She gave a nod. It was the best she could manage. "Yesterday, when we went out, you were acting strange. It was the same as the day you came home with me. You were jumpy, and your body was twitching. Why? You looked dangerous." "Too much new," she said, as if that was a complete and detailed explanation. "Too much new?" he repeated. "What was new to you?" "Everything. I have always been inside, never outside." She didn't understand the sorrowful expression on his face, or the way his hand went up to cover his mouth. "Never?" he whispered. "2 times I saw the outside." "I'm sorry," he said to her. He looked at her for a long time, a look on his face she had never seen before. It was a look of deep sympathy and sorrow that a person could be abused in such a way, although she didn't understand what it meant. "You can now," he said, emotion hindering his words. "You are free now." If only it were that simple, she thought. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes chapter 10. It is quite interesting how there's been a dynamic shift in the story of who you feel sorry for. Because at first, we definitely feel sorry for Jay, because all of a sudden she's become like super dangerous and, controlling and everything else. But he doesn't realize that she's just as terrified as he is. But it's starting to come clear, very slowly. The picture is being painted for Jay to realize that she's come from a place of, torture. He just doesn't really know to what extent. Not to mention the fact that she's not technically human. This is kind of the pivotal point in the story that I was waiting to happen. In order for this story to continue and to still be one that has interest and that would grow and evolve, especially with the characters, there needed to be something between Adele and Jay that actually made more of a connection, if you will. Otherwise, it would kind of fall flat. And I think now we're starting to see that happen. So I'm encouraged. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. But then, of course, there's the other side of the story with Danny. How does he fit into this? He's going to be pivotal in some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, he wouldn't be such a main character as he is. Well, I mean, Adele's the main character, yes, but he's a very strong, like, supportive role, if you will. So yeah, I'm curious. Quite curious. But for now, let's see who's on the podium. The question really is Kay first? My gut tells me that Jesse will be in third place, I will be in second, and Kay will be in first. Let's find out. Hey, prediction number 1. Jesse, well done, third place. In second place. Okay. Why do I feel like the points are going to reveal that you got robbed? Because there it is. I won more races. We run the same amount of races. I think the only difference here is that I was in all 16 and you missed one. Because we were only 7 points behind. Or apart. Makes me wonder, had you been in all 16, I don't know, maybe you would have taken it. You got called away. That happens. It happens. That was close, though. That was very close. All right. Let's switch this. Let's figure out who we're gonna go raid. Just gotta find my... There it is. Okay, sipping coffee and listening quietly. Well, I'm sipping tea. And not speaking quietly, I guess. I have appreciated that tonight has been super calm, really chill. My throat has definitely felt better. It's also felt way, way worse. But I still wanted to be able to read, so I was glad that we could. But yeah, Thursday, no matter how I'm feeling, please be here Thursday, because it is going to be an absolute ball. Stunt Mama is going to be joining us to play Helldivers for the first time ever. She's a newbie. And it's going to be fantastic. So stick around for that for sure. Add honey to tea and hold it back of mouth and throat before swallowing. Yes, I have done that a couple of times in the past. Probably not as much as I should, but yeah, it's definitely a thing. Like some people like lemon as well, but I can't do lemon. But anyway, I digress. Let me give you the raid message. We're gonna go raid Gemma. She's doing her charity stream right now. Biddies for titties. So please copy the raid message. And let's go raid our lovely friend, Gemma. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me, and even if you've just been in the background, lurking and hanging out, I appreciate it. We'll be back on Thursday, as I said, to play some Helldivers, but until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, have a great night.